She said she did it. It was to keep her grandkids, but it wasn't supposed to go that far. Those are the words of current Leon County inmate Patricia Bird, one of two jail informants who testified today. And man, they may have blown the lid off of a case that had already had its lid blown off. We're talking about Donna Sue Adelson versus the state of Florida.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. It is called Surviving the Survivor. You see it right over my right shoulder. Today, testimony was really fascinating. In contrast, the last couple of days, they were really interesting, and I know they were to the jurors because I've been watching them, but they were primarily wiretaps. But today we had witnesses back on the stand in earnest. And jurors heard Donna allegedly confessing here to orchestrating the plot by promising favors and money for false testimony, which was corroborated by a handwriting analyst. So it went from really bad with Rob Adelson on the stand to even worse, in my opinion, with these jailhouse informants. And without further ado, and happy Friday afternoon to everybody. You've got the famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney, the letter R and OUR, Timothy Jansen, also a former federal prosecutor. And for full disclosure, I'm meeting Tim right after the show. We're going to get a couple of drinks. It's been a long, however many days, but stretches well into last week. And it's time for Tim and I to decompress. I got the COE on the way up here. I said, how's the drive going? She said, well, between the traffic, the hurricane force winds, the rain. She mentioned about 9 other things. She said that we're barely out of Miami. So Tim Jansen, I probably don't have to be back in the hotel room till about 4 a.m. Next up, you've got the professor, the legal eagle, the workhorse. Not only does she come prepared and give you amazing analysis, but her sweater matches her wall paint in the other room. It's simply incredible. If I could falter on one thing, it'd be a slightly too much headroom, but that is something that is easily fixable. And Joe Patuto otherwise is an absolute saint. She is she's the patron saint of STS. I hope that is not blasphemous, but that's how I see her.
No, I like it much better than workhorse. Much better than workhorse.
Okay, you're now the patron saint of STS. Last but not least, Jeremy Mutz, a former prosecutor in Leon County, a criminal defense attorney in a town called Chipley, which is not far from here. Maybe one day I'll take a drive over now that I'm in the Panhandle. But we are coming to you live. I know she hates when I call her workhorse. Abby, by the way, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. I raced out of there. What people don't know, and I asked Tim, deputies, there's a parking lot right behind the courthouse, and the deputies are all out there. And I was like, why are they out there? And Tim's like, to protect the jurors, you numbskull. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. This is a courthouse. So, but when that happens, they slow up traffic and then I'm late to the show. So I raced out of there. So Abby Crossing, please forgive me. Let me just tell you, and I don't want to start on a note where I'm picking on someone, but court started late today. I got this from a source inside the courtroom, and I've got to say, this is probably the strongest source within a courtroom that anyone could have outside of the attorneys. I'll put it that way. And according to this source, they told me the reason court actually started late today, Tim Jansen, is because last night while taking her nightly medication, Jackie Fulford told Judge Everett she accidentally took a sleeping pill and she couldn't wake up this morning and was late to court. And then she had to walk it off. Tim Jansen, have you ever heard such a thing? And what would Judge Hankinson have done in this situation?
He would have held her in contempt as soon as she got her sea legs or courtroom legs. You can't make this up.
No.
You can't take a sleeping pill and be late for court when you're in a murder trial. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat her up, Joe, but she sort of deserves it. I saw all of a sudden everyone going, "Oh, Joe snort." Like, so, Joe, again, she was just you had some witty comment. I can't remember
But
exactly what it
snarky
is.
is what I called it. I
Yeah,
couldn't resist.
yeah. I mean, what did you make of her today on these cross examinations? I mean, is it just stylistic, or is it? Are we at a point now because people are fearful? Are we at a point where Donna Adelson is going to be able to cry ineffective assistance of counsel?
No, I don't think so. Ineffective assistance to counsel requires one, that the lawyer is not doing a reasonably competent job in presenting a case, and all credence goes to tactical choices that a lawyer makes. Judges don't second guess. And even if you can show that, the second part of it is that there also has to be showing that there's a reasonable likelihood that the result would have been different had the lawyer done better, which would mean that if the lawyer done something, it would have been better and there wouldn't have been a conviction. I didn't see any. I mean, I don't think they're doing particularly well. I don't like the style. I don't like all the pauses. I don't like what looks like being unprepared. I don't like every time Jackie looks like she's trying to establish rapport, because it just goes flat like a pancake. I don't like any of it. But they also have a terrible case.
Yeah.
And you can only do what you can do if the case is really bad. And I think the case is really strong against them. And, so I don't know what they could do. Now, I do think they have done a couple of things that I think are just silly. I mean, the argument that they made today on the handwriting on the script, which was not that we're going to contest whether it's Donna's handwriting, but we're going to be pushing that what happened was the informer sat in a room with Donna and dictated the questions to her. Partly the questions required knowledge the informer wouldn't have, but besides that, in what world can you make a jury believe that Donna is writing out questions that an informer gave her? It's just I thought it was even worse than the double extortion theory that Charlie ran the last time. So yes, I think they're doing things that I don't understand, but I think ultimately it's just a really difficult, hard case.
I would agree with that. I mean, they have not a lot to work with, as Jeremy Mutz, the Southern gentleman, knows. A lot of bad facts make it tough. But Jeremy, if this is FSU Bama tomorrow, and FSU has run the score up 75-0, which they'll do because I'm rooting for the Noles, that's what this feels like. It feels like Georgia and Sarah are merciless. And right now, to me, it feels like a 75-0 game with just no chance. And Donna going back to her jail cell over the weekend and just sitting there and pondering her future, which is going to be prison unless there's some sort of rogue juror. And I don't see that. And a lot of people I've talked to just don't see that with this jury panel. So just your thoughts, I guess, generally speaking now.
Well, thank you for having me, Joel. And it's good to be on with Professor Joe and with Tim. And I mean, I certainly agree with their analysis, throughout the day. Yes, I think that's a good analogy. I think maybe you could also think of a runaway freight train, and you're just trying to turn that brake wheel to slow it down. And, I think that they just don't have much to work with. I'm kind of worried about an ineffective assistance claim only in things like that if your attorney shows up, kind of hungover from a sleeping pill, then that's some ammunition there that I don't want to see. Although I don't think that's going to be successful. I thought Miss Fulford tried to develop some themes that could have been successful for her, but she wasn't surgical with them, and they kind of fell flat. For instance, she got in that they're going to Vietnam, and Vietnam doesn't necessarily not extradite to the U.S. So she had a good point there she could have made, but it took 30 minutes to get to that point. You'd have to be more surgical and boom, get to the fact that you were trying to get to. Secondly, there's a bar mitzvah that she's going to come back for potentially. So get out through that witness that, so she was going to expose herself to arrest. If a warrant was issued for her, she's going to travel back for the bar mitzvah, make your point and sit down. there was also the fact that there's no direct link between Donna Adelson and Mr. Rivera Garcia. That was a good point.
Yeah, that was a good point. That was on cross.
But
With
it took 2 hours to get there.
Yeah, it took 2 hours to get there. That was on cross, but Georgia cleaned that right up, I think, and I don't think that was very impactful. But Tim, a couple other kind of random questions, and then we'll sink our teeth into the testimony from this afternoon. I did a lunch live, so if you want to catch up on we'll touch on some of the stuff, because one of the most important things I thought to come out of this was the license plate number, and I'll explain that in a minute. But Tim, at the very end of the day, just to sort of put the exclamation mark on this, they brought Sergeant Chris Corbett back up, and now he's reading the WhatsApp messages that people didn't think they had. And on the day of Charlie's conviction, this is the day Charlie is convicted, November 6, 2023, Wendi and Donna are talking via WhatsApp, and Wendi says, I love you very much. Call if you feel like you can. And she says, this is Donna's response: your brother protected you for years. Now you are not guilty. Your lawyer took very good care of you. You can bury me in the dress that I bought for Lincoln's bar mitzvah. This, again, is another piece of evidence, because when you read between the lines here, this is Donna saying to Wendi, and this against Wendi, I mean, this is Donna saying to Wendi, your brother basically was the fall guy for you. Your lawyer protected you, but your brother protected you and didn't squeal on you, didn't tell on you during his trial. They have simultaneously, I think, convicted Donna and began the metaphorical burial process for Wendi. How damning is this WhatsApp message?
Well, they're all damaging, and that conversation clearly shows that Charlie did something for her. The question is, how much involvement did she have? And I did an article today, I don't know if you saw it online, the Democrat, about how this sequence has been going. And every prosecution, when Katie was being prosecuted, they gave information on Charlie. When Charlie was prosecuted, they gave information about Donna. And when Donna was prosecuted, now they're giving evidence against Wendi. It looks like that train is heading in the same direction. And it looks like now there will most probably be charges possibly against Wendi.
That's going to be fascinating. Look at this comment. COE is listening on the way up here right now. Again, she's like on 123rd and Biscayne, which is only 8.5 hours away from where I am. I would like some merch that says Professor Joe, patron saint of STS. You know, I have a Keith Morrison prayer candle, and I want to get one with Joe Patuto on a prayer candle, and I know who to go to for that. Those will probably sell by the millions, so I'm definitely going to do that. Joe Patuto, just if you can, just pick up on that. I mean, the evidence has been building against Wendi, and this WhatsApp message, she's literally essentially saying your brother protected you and didn't tattletale. He kept it. He took the hit. He's going to prison for you. Your lawyer's been protecting you. So in essence, she's saying you were in on this and we all got in the way to save you. Again, how damning is that potentially?
I do. Now that we saw before, that particular WhatsApp. I agree. I have said every time you've asked me this that I thought they would prosecute Wendi. I've never wavered from it. But I've also said that in order to get there, a jury has to run the inferences from the evidence towards Wendi's guilt. And in a number of the pieces, you can run an inference one way or the other. But the fact that they're providing more little pieces in on Wendi helps, I think, a jury to be able to run the inferences toward guilt. It wasn't simply that statement, Joel. It's Wendi changing the TV to streaming 2 weeks before. It's Wendi. I think there was some evidence from Jeff that she took down the kids' drawings in the house in Tallahassee. I mean, they're all tiny little pieces. In and of themselves, they wouldn't show guilt of anything. But but what they're doing is combining towards a picture that I think makes it more available for the jury to say, yeah, there were 2 or 3 ways to read this, but when I look at the whole context, the only reasonable way to read it is running towards her guilt.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, Jeremy, Harold, anything but dull. He's in the courtroom, and I hang out with him. He corrected me today. I thought he said he had run 40 marathons, but it's actually 20 marathons in 40 years. With that said, he ran the Boston Marathon in 3 hours and 15 minutes. And when I told John Singer that, who had run 4 New York marathons, he had one word: savage. Which is and Harold, anything but dull, ran for Drake University in college, so he's been running since his college days. But he said, and he was also, by the way, a career paralegal, so he knows the law. But he said a 385 appeal would be way down the line. What does that mean in English? Jeremy, please explain.
That's ineffective assistance of counsel. That, and the number is just the rule in the Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure, and that just says your attorney did something that wasn't effective. Professor Joe was talking about that before we switched over, and analyzed that pretty well. And the thing I do worry about is just stuff like what we heard today, that if an attorney's, if I come in and say, well, I'm sorry, Judge, I'm late, I'm hungover from last night, I mean, that doesn't look good. And taking a sleeping pill, I don't think that's going to be successful for Donna, but I think she'll file one against these lawyers. But I'd like to just kind of piggyback on the thing about Wendi. The thing that stood out to me, and I think they're dialed in on Wendi and the testimony that they were attempting to elicit through Jeffrey Lacasse, that she asked him, what age does a child remember? And they inadvertently didn't disclose that testimony, but next time they won't make that mistake. They'll file a notice if they intend to get that in through Jeffrey Lacasse as an expert. They'll be able to do it, and I think that was crucial. They're not thinking about these things just for the hell of it. They're going to go after Wendi, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, by the way, I put out a video. We've got a lot of new Patreon members, so we're giving them first dibs for the next few days, and then I'll put it out to everybody. But I put out a video of kind of the collection of evidence that has mounted against Wendi. Again, that's for Patreon members, and then the COE will put it out for everybody. But since that's a pay thing, the COE put it out there first. But NYU Manhattan here, Tim Jansen, this one's for you. By the way, Labor Day is a long weekend. I've said this before. I'm addicted to a radio show because I guess I'm old, maybe. I don't know. But I listen to this radio show, Coast to Coast AM, and they're always on the holidays because the host, George Norrie, used to be Art Bell, feels like it's a big family, and it's kind of soothing to hear a familiar voice. So if anyone feels that way about us, number one, it's very humbling. But number two, Carm has offered to do a show when my family's driving back on Monday, kind of an Ask Carm Anything about this case. Carm's got some experience being a tough, overbearing Jewish mother at times, and she would do an Ask Anything with you and me. So in the chat, let me know if you guys are down to get down, as Steve Cohen says, with Carm and myself on Monday on the off day, because they're not back in court till Tuesday. But Tim Jansen from NYU Manhattan, why is the defense so disorganized on cross? They aren't starting strong, focusing on the cross, presenting any theme, or ending strong. What do you think is going on, Tim Jansen?
Well, they don't have a theory of defense. They don't have a roadmap. They aren't disciplined because, each witness, they've already taken depots or seen transcripts. So they know what the testimony is going to be in, and there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be some new things, but they should already have 8 or 9 questions that are winners for them. And sometimes that's all you get. You go up there, make your points, make a good point, get them to concede, and then you sit down. You don't fumble around trying to find a point. You end up with Chris Corbett, you end up getting burned more times than not. But they just don't seem like they have a theme or a defense. and they're just going up there asking questions. And then if they get a question that sounds good answer, then they rest. Not as if it's a point towards any direction.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I know we're beating them up. I am more than anybody, but I got to say, Josh Selman is just a gentleman. He's just very collegial and nice. Can't say the same about Jackie. Not that she's not nice. She just doesn't have a clue who anybody is outside of the 2 feet around her defense table. But they just have bad facts. Because the COE is here and Space Coast, I think, is in, so he might be able to pull these up. But huge thanks to Kim, who gave us a $99.99 super chat saying, I can't pull it up. I'm sorry. I feel like I owe Professor Joe fall semester tuition. This trial, there you go, would not be as good without her. Thank you, Professor. And then Spacey, if you want to pull up the rest, I can read. We really appreciate the super chats, and thank you very much. Joe Patuto, to you, one of the other things that was interesting that I think came up with Drina on the stand today, one of the jailhouse informants, is she was told, according to her testimony, by Donna Adelson, not only would they get, at least Patricia Byrd, I think, was promised veneers, among other things, teeth work and all this other stuff. But I think it was Drina Bernhardt who said that Donna told her that Harvey would Zelle her money, which is a payment system, that the banks have to direct send, cash. What does that mean for Harvey? Because now they're dropping bombs on Harvey as well.
Yeah, I thought there was more against Harvey also. And some of it was not so much information we didn't have, but I think the surrounding information got clearer this time. I do think that my own view, that they could probably go after him. I also think if they don't do it this time, they probably won't, because if they do indict Wendi, by the time they get to Wendi, and then it would be another few months or a year before they got to Harvey, that we're really getting way out there. But yeah, I thought there was more showing his complicity. The issue with Harvey is as I understand Florida law, and Jeff, you're in a better position to say this than I am, but the accessory after the fact to a crime, there's an exclusion for immediate family members. Is that right? That's what I've been hearing from people from Florida.
I have not heard that, and I'm
okay. Then maybe I'm getting bad information, but there've been lawyers from Florida who've been saying that, and I thought, because the evidence that's coming in certainly would support an accessory after, if not get to the conspiracy or the murder itself.
You certainly have obstruction, witness tampering.
Exactly. Yeah.
To the Southern gentleman, Jeremy Mutt. So today we find out that, and I don't think we've heard this before, that they go back, that Dan Rashbaum handed over a 2014 planner, which is obviously the year of the murder, at the time of the murders. And in Donna's obsessively compulsively kept planner, what do you know? They find Dan Markel's license plate or tag number, which is for a 2008 Honda Accord 534 YBM. Now, she's in Miami. Yeah. Wendi is in the area. My thinking is it had to be Wendi who was handing off that tag number to the mother. And if that's true, another piece of evidence, another nail potentially in Wendi's coffin, that she was part of this. How damning is that license plate number on that Honda Accord?
Yeah, it's extremely damning. That's not something that Ben or Lincoln are going to go out there when they're first learning how to write and write that down for their grandmother. That's not something that the neighbor who went over to check on Dan Markel is going to write down and send to Donna. There's no innocent explanation for that. That's not something. I mean, my in-laws don't have my tag number written down. I guarantee you that. So most jurors are going to see that for what it is, and that's a link. It's kind of like the link of the schedule. The only person that's going to know Dan's schedule is Wendi. Luis and Garcia aren't going to know that schedule. So I think that's very important.
Yeah. Jeremy, while I have you, what about, a lot of people were asking about this today. The prosecution never showed the arrest video. They could have. I mean, they had Sanford on the stand. How come they didn't show that? Is there a reason?
Maybe sympathy towards Donna. And I think, ultimately I think Georgia was not trying really to highlight that portion. The cross ended up highlighting it more. And Professor Joe was commenting about that, made the point very well that when they objected, then the state went and described in detail what happened with seizing that phone and how she resisted. The state was going to kind of just gloss over that. She tried to pull away with the phone. Objection, then they go into the whole scenario, and I think it cemented it for the jury of what took place. I don't know. I think maybe they just didn't want to take the time with it, or maybe they didn't want to have sympathy for her. I'm not really sure what the call was. I don't know that it was that significant either way. I mean, I think the evidence to this point is so overwhelming. I don't know that even her trying to pull the phone away, I don't know that makes much difference.
Yeah.
Joe, you're not allowed to show the jury a defendant being put in handcuffs. It's very prejudicial. So maybe they didn't know where they want to get anywhere near that. They didn't want to go to it. Maybe there was a motion in limine that she was effectively in custody, and it's more prejudicial than probative.
And Tim knew that I was going to ask that, so he just answered it. Combat Gremlin, a question for Joel. These are the questions that I get. How did you manage not to fall asleep? Like, you guys get questions about criminal procedure and statutes. I get, how did you not fall asleep? I'll be honest, there've been a couple of days where I take a little cat nap, and the media room, for whatever reason, like, if COVID was a room, it would be the media room. That's the only way I could explain it. There's zero ventilation. It's hot. It's stuffy. So yeah, if COVID was an actual physical room, it would be the media room. I think they're trying to get us all sick. So the minute I go, everyone in there just like is their heads nodding. In the courtroom, it's very chilly, so it keeps you awake. And I'll tell you, there are moments, because we have all heard, or the majority of us have heard a lot of this before, but to the jurors, it's brand new. I'll say this again. I have never seen a jury that is as attentive as this jury, paying as close attention as they are. There's maybe one or two women in the back row, right in the middle, who periodically are not quite as attuned to what's going on, but I don't think it's an issue where they're like anti-prosecution or pro-Donna. It's just that they're probably just like, it's been a long day and they're kind of tuning things out. But Tim Jansen, I got to ask you, the license plate number as well, the 2008 Honda Accord. I mean, who else has given that to Donna to put in her planner other than Wendi? How problematic is that for Wendi, not Donna?
Well, you'd like to, if you're the state, prove when that license plate came. So you can't argue that Donna or someone else got it when they were married. If it was a newer plate and recent, then it would have to come from Wendi. And that is a big thing, because we don't know. Katie didn't say what was in that envelope. She said she didn't open it. So in that envelope, could it have been the picture, the license plate, the car, the address? That would be key, right? If you put all that together, you are really putting a big circle around Wendi Adelson.
By the way, you can't go 2.5 feet in Tallahassee without the mayor over here, Tim Jansen, having someone come up to him. I mean, we're at an unnamed restaurant last night, and a guy comes out, literally out of the kitchen, out of nowhere, to say hi to Tim. Like, it's just anywhere you go with this guy, it's like being with a rock star in Tallahassee. So
it's a small town.
It's not that small. Abby Taha, she can make the patron saint of Joe Patuto candles. I'll probably take her up on that. And then Nikki Cuds, how does Donna feel now about throwing Wendi under the bus, leaving her sunshines with no parents? I mean, Joe Patuto, let me ask you about that, because that's a question that comes up often. How can you prosecute someone if the parents are essentially then orphaned? I mean, with Dan being away, kids are teenagers now, not that makes it any better. But Joe, I can tell you, I've talked to people very close to the Markells, and they feel like justice will not be served unless Wendi is amongst those who are indicted. So they feel like she was involved in this. But Joe, from a prosecutorial standpoint, is there anything taken into account as it pertains to minor children, or they just have to go by the letter of the law?
You mean whether to prosecute or not when they've
Correct.
got
Yeah.
the evidence for a major crime? I would, Jeremy can probably certainly answer with more experience, but I would say certainly not. But you do run a risk in Katie's, the hung jury in the first trial with Katie, the juror who wouldn't convict apparently was quoted as saying, "I cannot take both parents away from children. I won't vote that way." So part of the issue with prosecuting when you're prosecuting someone who has small children is you have to be really careful in jury selection. That juror was either pregnant or had just given birth, and she was probably more attuned and sympathetic to what would happen to small children if both their parents were taken away. But I certainly don't think it certainly as a matter of law, it shouldn't matter whether a defendant is 80 or a defendant has 3 little kids at home or any of those things. As a practical matter, I am sure it comes into the calculus somewhere, somehow.
Jeremy Mutz, I mean, you were a prosecutor in that courthouse. So does it, real quick before you answer that, Jeremy, Laura Quigley, Tim, they want to know roughly how much Donna is paying for her defense. Just give us a rough number.
Well, obviously too much. But
that was a good answer, Tim.
I don't
leave
know.
it at that.
Yeah.
Too much. Jeremy Mutz, what about that? I mean, are they going to take into consideration? I mean, should they? Do they? Would they?
It depends on the prosecutor. I know some prosecutors that would prosecute their own mother without a second thought. I mean, it's just, and then others, I think they would consider this. I think Jack Campbell perhaps would consider this, if the evidence is there, if the case is closed, what happens to those kids? I do think Jack would think about that. But there are other prosecutors in that office and other offices that I've dealt with that it wouldn't matter at all. Should it matter? I mean, I think, kind of like the old Hippocratic Oath, I think a prosecutor ought to live a little bit by that, do no harm. Or if I'm going to do something, I better be darn sure the evidence is overwhelming before I do put a parent of these kids in jeopardy because they've lost their father, they've lost their grandmother, they've lost an uncle. And, maybe they're better off without those people in their lives, but it is a huge impact on those kids. And I think I'd want to, consider that. And ultimately, I think it weighs in favor of prosecuting Wendi with all the things we're talking about, that we're really learning in this trial, that there's evidence against her that we didn't know about, 2 weeks ago. I think it's there. I think you have to go forward, but a prosecutor ought to, be thinking about those things. And I think the best prosecutors do have compassion and do think about what the impact of their prosecution brings. They don't always do that. And, I don't always agree with the prosecutors I go up against, but I think the best ones can look at an individual, not just look at, prosecute pulling the trigger and getting a conviction.
Yeah. And in the same vein here from Brittany, Tim Jansen, do you think they mention all the Wendi stuff are putting these drips and drabs, which are, I think, a little bit more than just drips and drabs, so they can then survey the jurors after the trial to see if they have enough? I mean, would they question the jury afterwards just to get an idea?
That question reminds me of politicians floating trial balloons out there on issues. Certainly, you're going to have jurors, if there is a conviction in this case, who are going to reach out to the prosecution and tell them how they think it was. And the prosecution likes to meet with them to see what was good, what was bad, what they thought was good, what could they improve on. And that is important. I want to go back to the kids thing. Listen, you commit murder, they don't care how old your kids are. If you're involved in drug dealing, and I've had many cases where sometimes the wife does something minor, right? But the husband's a drug dealer and the wife sometimes delivers a package. They will work a deal out if the drug dealer cuts a deal that they will not charge the wife because there's minor children. And that also helps get the husband to cut a deal and go to trial. But on a murder case, they're not going to consider they have young children. They're going to go where the evidence is.
Yeah, and again, I can tell you I have firsthand knowledge, and I think that I know people close to Markel's, and I think the Markel's feel like she was complicit in this. So obviously it brings up a complicated situation, but justice probably won't truly be served until they go after her, which I personally think that they are going to do. Please, if you appreciate the content and a great guest, just hit that like button and subscribe. Takes us a lot further than you think. So Joe, let's just dig into these jailhouse informants. Again, Patricia Byrd, she's currently in custody. She comes out there in a jail jumpsuit and basically talks about how she was there, where they call her Kay, but Katie Magbanawa, and was there at the same time as Donna, and claims that Donna told her, and I quote, this is the quote from Patricia, "She did it to keep her grandkids, but it wasn't supposed to go that far." Number one, again, how damaging is that to jurors, and how do jurors weigh the testimony from people who are, in her case, a career criminal?
Well, they're going to look more closely at it, clearly. And they're also going to look at the inconsistencies. I mean, I thought the defense did a pretty good job with Byrd, bringing out all these seemingly inconsistent statements she made. How many times she talked to the defense, how many times she talked to the how many times was it a woman, and all of that. And from the way it sounded, she really did either have a really poor memory, maybe it's because of her lifestyle, or was lying. And I think that's one of the places where I think they really did cut into the credibility. And she already was coming in, when you come in with the jail garb on, and you talk about the crimes you've committed, and clearly, and I thought it was even more clear with Bernhardt, they were looking for deals. And I thought with the cross, if you look at Bernhardt, I thought they did a really good job of showing that she really was looking for a deal. But what they couldn't get at was whether the information she was giving was accurate. So sure, she had this motive. She was doing it not for some, gee, I want to serve the cause of justice. She was doing it because she wanted to get a shorter time in prison over it. But the fact is, the information sounded very credible. And the two informers in some ways corroborated each other, because they both talked about Donna making the same sort of offer, and they both talk about how it happened, and whether they were able. And I thought the defense was trying to do this also, that how could they have stories that in some ways parallel to each other if it wasn't Donna? And I thought what the defense was trying to do was, well, Byrd and Bernhardt were in that pod together at the same time, and they could have colluded with each other as to the story. But if that's what the defense was trying to do, they dropped it in the middle, and they didn't follow through to make the case. Clearly you're gonna look much more closely. What did they say? 27 convictions for Bernhardt.
Yeah,
and she's looking at 15 years. I mean,
hey guys, I gotta run.
Question.
I gotta run and go get my dogs.
All right, Timbo.
Have a great weekend. Have a great Labor Day. See
Tim,
you
I'll call you when we're off.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim. Tim's solo. His wife is away, and he brings his dogs to doggy daycare. Being the good father that he is, he then picks them up on the rebound. But we'll go for like 20 more minutes. It's been a very long week, but there's plenty of things I have to ask. And one of them, Jeremy Mutz, again, Patricia Byrd in her testimony said that Donna offered her veneers, like teeth, I think she says, land and money. Right. I mean, this brings in a whole other batch of potential charges. I mean, I know she's not facing these charges here, but if someone like Harvey, if they have more information on him, could Harvey potentially face like I don't know if it's a bribery charge, what kind of charge, if they've got more information? People today in the courtroom were saying they're going to handcuff Wendi and Harvey, not just Wendi. And it's going to happen soon because of the information that was coming out. So what kind of legal peril do you think Harvey potentially is in right now?
It's not insignificant. I think there potentially could be tampering with the witness if they're able to, tie up. If he actually did send something via Zelle to her account or to a relative, and they can tie it up. It all depends on whether they can tie it up. But I think it certainly, as it pertains to Donna, it has a ring of truth to it. So if the jury is looking at it, if we should believe Miss Bird, because as Professor Joe, as Tim talked about, she certainly has marks against her. When a witness shows up in jail clothes and talks about trying to get a deal, jurors may not want to believe that naturally, but her story certainly has a ring of truth to it. And the way that Donna spoke to her and offered the veneers and the advertising that they were doing with the Adelson Institute, one of the happy customers was talking about their veneers. So, these are things that just are within the realm of possibility. I think it was credible. I think it was very damaging. And I guess time will tell if they do decide to prosecute Harvey, if they have documentation, if they have the payment records, there may be something there. They may decide it's not really worth going after the man. He's almost 85 years old. And that would be a third-degree felony. It's not the most serious charge.
I just couldn't help. Personally, I couldn't help watching these exchanges and listening to these jailhouse informants. Who here thinks that Donna Adelson would ever even, let alone talk to these women, but even look at them if they were out in the real world? She was so clearly manipulating these people who, she looks down on people from Tallahassee, and these are sort of the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum here in Tallahassee. Donna would never pay them any mind, but behind bars, she's now working on them to help her. Joe, we're looking at one of the notes here. This is not a note, but this is part of the script that Donna wrote for them to then recite if anyone asks them questions. How did you know who Donna Adelson was? And the answer was supposed to be, everyone knows her. She's been on the news. Not egotistical at all. Everyone knows her. She's been on the news. I've seen and heard about this on some TV shows and read it in the newspaper over the years. Now, they brought in a handwriting analyst who basically confirmed that this is Donna. So, Joe, what's the deal here? Is this another? I thought when Rob testified, it was all over, but is it all over twice now because of this?
I thought it was
script?
very compelling. And the handwriting expert did not say, as many experts will do, it is consistent with. The handwriting expert said it is Donna's handwriting. She was emphatic about it. I thought it was, two things. I do think it's very damning. Why are you moving towards trying to get someone to perjure herself for you if you have no guilt? The other part of it, though, is I can not understand, Jeremy, you've got a lot more experience with all defendants than I do, but I cannot understand where their brains are in all this.
Yeah.
You are in jail with people who have every incentive to try to get out. You know that this happens all the time. And what do? Not only do you talk to two of them about, lying for you. One would be bad enough, but you add it by doing two. But then you write out the script in your own handwriting. Where her brain is when she's doing this. She's not stupid in the sense of she took an IQ test, but boy, is she I don't want to.
No,
Yeah.
She doesn't have street smarts. Tim and I were talking.
Street smarts, Joel. That's complete idiocy. Oh my God.
Well, Tim and I were talking about this, and Jeremy, I'll let you jump in a sec. But Tim and I were talking about this at dinner. Like the best. I was asking him who makes the best criminal defense attorneys, and he said guys with street smarts. They're not usually like the Harvard intellectual. Like those people go off and do appellate law or whatever. But Tim was saying. It's really the people, but for Donna to go, I'm just making the comparison because for Donna to go into jail and start, confiding and manipulating these people, not thinking that they're not going to play her right back is just ignorance. Jared, real quick, Willow Armadillo here. I like the name. From a North Jersey girl to another, I'm going to go through withdrawal this weekend. You are a rock star. Thank you, Tim, COE, Joel, and the mods. I don't know. We should run Joe Patuto on a video loop so people get I don't know.
Their fix.
Yeah, they get their fix. Exactly. To you, Jeremy. So Josh Zellman, he did get Patricia Bird, one of these jailhouse informants, to say at one point that Donna's only role was writing a check to Katie Magbanawa, which is no small thing, but it's a decent admission. But I mean, don't you have to look at these at the totality of the circumstantial evidence? I mean, that's one little, maybe minor victory, but when the jurors are not going to go, individual piece by individual, I mean, they're going to have a collective theory and a collective thought. So maybe a small win, but the jury's going to look at this holistically, correct?
I think they will. And that's one link in the chain. She wrote the checks, but that's kind of like the analogy of saying I didn't participate in the bank robbery because all I did was draw out the plan of the bank and gave it to my friends to go rob the bank. That's a significant piece. And she obviously was involved in the planning of this, the thinking of this, the constant obsession over this, and the efforts to cover it up. I mean, her conversations with the undercover officer where she confronts him and says, listen, I didn't do this. And, I'm not paying. That's not an uninvolved person that's doing this. And going back to why in the world, why on earth would she give this script to somebody in the jail? I mean, it's almost like, has she never watched Law and Order and ever understood that, the police can put somebody in a cell with you and try to get you to, make a comment around them. And it's just, there's a hubris involved. There's a hubris involved in this that you think you're not going to get caught. They have signs up saying these calls are recorded in the jail, but people think that's not going to happen to me. They're not actually going to listen to my call. I'm not going to get caught. And so there's a certain amount of arrogance there that this is not going to happen to me. I can be smarter than the police. And then to begin with, when you think Tallahassee are a bunch of kind of backwards, small town rednecks and stuff, you're going to think, well, those cops up there aren't going to catch me. But, they don't realize that Tallahassee Police Department has as good officers as anywhere in the country. And you've got the FBI in on this from the beginning. So there's a certain amount of just arrogance there. And, people think they can plan the perfect murder. And, it doesn't take much but the weakest link in the thing to go awry. And then you have your guys you hire, they shoot a hole in the floorboards of the car, and they take the toll roads with SunPass. I think a 12-year-old could plan a better murder by taking the back roads, at least, to not leave an electronic trail. But they don't think it's going to apply to them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Mimi in Texas. I couldn't come up with the charge, Jeremy, but what about, something like witness tampering? If Harvey is, what kind of time he's 81 or 82. What kind of time, if he was convicted on a charge like that, indicted and then convicted, what are we talking about? Jail time?
It's a 5-year maximum. And, if they wanted to charge multiple counts for, if they tried to do this with more than one inmate or on more than one occasion, they probably could. They could probably rack up some time, but it seems like that would be something that they really wouldn't want to devote their time to. I do think Wendi is coming, and I think that's going to be it.
Jeremy, by the way, thank you for all these super chats. The COE, when she's not here, I don't know how to do anything. So Space Coast is helping out here. But Ida Shaw, JD, look, she took the JD. I hope you didn't get disbarred, Ida Shaw. But she is always here, and we appreciate it. And look, every time I do one of these shows, one of the reasons I love to do it is I learn. The law is absolutely fascinating, and I will talk smack again. Anybody who's watching a law tuber, when you've got Joe Patuto, who is a professor of law for 40 years, and you've got Tim and you've got Jeremy, and you're choosing a law tuber over her, the patron saint of STS. As Steve Cohen says, you got to have a checkup from the neck up if that's what you're doing, but you're free to choose, free to do whatever you would like to do. So be it. Joe Patuto.
Well, I will say, let me tell you,
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know if you heard this today, Jeremy, but I heard Special Agent Sanford give his definition of probable cause. And it was
Right.
by far the worst definition of probable cause I've ever heard in my life.
I think he was
Just an aside.
yeah, I think he was just kind of put on the spot by that.
He was.
And that's one thing as a defense attorney. As a prosecutor, I didn't really have to learn that definition for a long time. As a defense attorney, I think that's, some of your bread and butter to deal with that. I think he was kind of on the spot. I think probably if we sat around with him now, he'd probably come up with something better.
I am sure, but it was really funny to hear it.
Yeah. By the way,
Joe,
no, not at all. Not at all. I got a shot today of Harvey sitting by himself on the other side of the rotunda in the courthouse. I put it up on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor and on Twitter at Podcast STS. It's a very sad photo. He's literally just all alone in this giant space, and that's both. It's realistic, but it's also metaphorical. But Jeremy Mutz. In the course of this jailhouse informant testimony, we find out that one of the offerings to one of the incarcerated inmates is an old roommate of Charlie's, who's a dermatologist and a medical doctor, was going to offer up prescription medication. Does that doctor need to now hire an attorney? That's concerning that he's just, willy-nilly writing prescriptions for drugs to former drug addicts?
He probably doesn't have to take that step, but I'll tell you, sometimes if you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. He had been friends with Charlie, been roommates with Charlie, and maybe he was into some shady things and wrote prescriptions and gave out things to people, maybe gave out some to Charlie and the family. And so his name is thrown in it, but it could just be that they're throwing his name out there. He may not have done anything wrong, may never have done anything like that, but
that's a great point. That's a great point. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, but Dragon Nana to Joe Patuto. Joe Patuto, if I'm a 1L and I say to you, what professor, what's the difference between circumstantial and direct? Wouldn't direct evidence be between Donna and Katie be her signing checks? Donna signing Katie McBannon was checks. Isn't that direct evidence, Professor Patuto?
Yeah, I don't get it. Yes, but I don't get excited about the difference between direct and circumstantial. I think circumstantial in many cases is stronger. And I don't know why there's this constant, you hear it, it's only circumstantial evidence. If you watch a cat going up to a fishbowl where there's a goldfish, and you see the goldfish in the fishbowl and you walk away and you come back, there's no goldfish. The cat has wet whiskers on it. You're going to say that cat ate that goldfish. Now, that's not direct evidence because you didn't see it, but you saw the before and you saw the after. So I don't worry about whether it's direct or circumstantial. I worry about how the quality of the evidence, the credibility of the witnesses who are presenting it, and the amount of it. And I think that's what matters much more than whether you're going to say it's circumstantial or direct. And in fact, some direct evidence is notoriously unreliable. Eyewitness testimony. There's all kinds of research that is not really reliable evidence as compared to what I just gave you, the cat and the fishbowl example.
And Joe, let me just go back to you on this. We get to this so-called hot mic call, and on it, Donna says, and I quote here, "If the court or trial doesn't go well, I know what I want to do. We can do it together. Leave a note." what kind of impact do you think that had on the jurors? Because on the one hand, it's very sad, it's depressing, but on the other hand, it implies guilt because there's no way out.
Right. Well, jurors are human beings. Donna's sitting there looking, in her cable sweaters and, no makeup and her hair not quite, put together. And she looks a little sympathetic there. And so I think you can feel, a tug at the heartstrings. Here's this person who was so miserable, they even thought about, offing themselves. But, what you have to remember is what they did that got them there. It isn't as though there was some tragedy over which they had no control and it happened to them. Those people really deserve sympathy. They did it. And what they did was to take away the life of someone who had a remarkable career in front of him and two little kids, the father. And so I do think, I'm willing to give sympathy, but at the end of the day, I think the sympathy goes to the victims, and the people who perpetrated it need to be brought to justice and treated severely.
Yeah. By the way, Jeremy, someone just called you an excellent mock trial coach. I guess it's a former student. So there you go. Look at this. Lindsay Nicole. Good to see my mock trial coach, Jeremy Mutz, on the panel. Learned so much from him during law school. So that's cool, Jeremy, teaching the next generation of attorneys like Joe Patuto. But Jeremy, what about as long as I live, I'll never get over the one-way ticket to Vietnam via Dubai. That came up today.
Sure.
Again, they didn't show the video when they were discussing this. The jurors, literally were just like shaking their heads. The jurors are now giving pretty strong tells. Is that another just death knell for Donna Adelson's attempt to remain a free woman?
It certainly is. That is very compelling. Consciousness of guilt is very compelling evidence, and kind of like the difference between direct and circumstantial, that consciousness of guilt, that what you do after the crime can be just as telling, just as significant as the crime itself. And so I think that's very important and hard to overcome that. They tried. I did think that Ms. Fulford was trying to explore a theme that they do actually extradite from Vietnam. There may be a process for that they may have had a trip to come back for one of the kids, their bar mitzvah and so forth. And they tried to do that. But I think once the jury heard that is, another brick in this wall of building a solid case against Donna. It's hard to work her way out from under that.
Yeah, I've heard of that song, Another Brick in the Wall. Is the defense going to go hard at the double extortion story? So, Joe, what happens next week? By the way, one of the biggest headlines of the day is the state rested at the very end of the day. So we've got the Labor Day weekend, and then Tuesday, it's the defense's turn. Joe Patuto, what are you expecting? Thank you, Kelly Jansen, for this. I wouldn't watch this trial anywhere but STS. I appreciate that very much, as does the entire It Takes a Village. Nadia said Joe has been amazing. But Joe Patuto, what happens on Tuesday when court resumes?
Yeah, I think my own view, and I think I've heard it from everybody every lawyer at least who's been interviewed, is that Donna has to take the stand, that there's no way to explain or give the defense case unless she takes the stand. But I think it's not going to go well. I believe they've got what Josh Zellman said today was they had a witness that was flying in from the West Coast, and I believe that's going to be their forensic expert to counter what Chris Corbett testified to, because he's from Washington State, and so glancing at the witness list, it looks like it will be he. And I guess the other night that if they were going to put anybody on, it would be a forensic expert, because one hope in all of this is if they can undercut the Donna and Harvey stopping at Charlie's the night of the murder. Katie said they left off money. If they can't undercut that, then I think the case is so difficult anyway, but that would be really disastrous for them. So I think they're going to try to go hard at that. I thought that Charlie would not be called, and I still think that's true, but I'm less certain about it because of what Sarah Catherine Dugan did at the end with regard to going through that script and matching it against the extortion theory that Charlie had and going back and forth. And since they put that in, I just am wondering now whether the defense is going to feel they have to use Charlie for part of it. But I don't think that will go well either, in part because the theory is so ridiculous, and in part because Charlie, I do not believe, is going to be any better as a witness in front of the jury as he was in his own trial. But I think Donna will testify. I think the forensics expert will testify. They may call one of the lawyers that advised Donna that she could leave the country. She wasn't under arrest. She wasn't under indictment. She was free to go. So that may be another witness. After that, I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have their problem, frankly.
By the way, someone who is from New Jersey, of course, they just had a super chat that said it is no longer Donna, but Donna. That's coming from a Jersey person. Jeremy Mutz, do you agree? Number one, do you think we see Charlie next week or no? You agree with Joe?
I'm leaning towards seeing him. I think he may feel like he could walk a tightrope between, not admitting anything himself and then this extortion theory and trying to say, well, I was dealing with this and I didn't tell my mother everything and she was just trying to help me, and you're not hearing. And some of the theme that they were trying to develop today, the state hasn't shown you everything that's in these phone calls, or you don't know everything that they're discussing off the phone. So there's more there, and Donna wasn't told everything, and she's just trying to support Charlie. I don't think it's going to be successful. As a defense attorney, your bread and butter defenses that you're used to working, self-defense or maybe a sloppy investigation, and neither of those are here. So they're dealing with something that's difficult to begin with. It wasn't a great defense the last time. It's no better now. It certainly has not, like a fine wine. It's not gotten any better with age, and they're stuck with it. They're trying to do the best they can with it. But I don't think it's going to work. I think if Donna testifies, I don't think she's going to come across very well. I mean, I think they'll certainly try to prepare her, and I think she'll do the best she can. But the facts she's got, I don't think she's going to come across well with this jury.
Yeah, every once in a while, like I try to pull myself away from being so, inside of this case with my nose right in it. And when you think about it, I mean, you have the Markell family, you have Dan Markell, literally Harvard undergrad, Harvard law. I was talking to his dad. One of his plans was to make FSU a top 10 law school in the entire country, and he was well on his way to doing it, bringing in legal scholars and doing all these things. I mean, literally the whole world in front of them. But the same with the Adelsons. I mean, they had tons of success as dentists, periodontists. I mean, even Wendi was a lawyer, went to law school. The strange, and it's all gone because of a maniacal family. And one day I'll share, because I've gotten information about the Adelsons' extended family, and it's very interesting because this is something that is, I think, pathological. And when I'm able to elaborate a little bit more, it is very interesting. It's not like a one and done sort of thing. There's a bit of a history of this in the family. So it is quite fascinating. And just an absolutely crazy case. But back to so Joe, you're basically saying you're not sold on the fact that Rob is that Charlie's going to testify. But if Donna gets up there, how long is she up there for? How is this handled? Because we all know Georgia and Sarah, and they are going to be salivating like pit bulls in a junkyard. I mean, they're going to be sitting there writing down every little note, and they're going to cross her, and they're going to probably crush her. So tell us how this plays out.
Do you recall how long the cross that Georgia's cross of Charlie was in the last trial?
No, but I'll say this. Everyone, when she was done, said, I can't believe that was it. Yeah, and thought she did a bad job, and then they convicted him in under 3 hours. By the way, I think this conviction is coming back in less time. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this jury seems different. It's hard to explain.
My instinct is that they will approach it the same way and go after it, all the little pieces that don't work, that don't make any sense. And so the reason why I asked about Charlie is my instinct would be it would be around the same time to do what they want to do with Donna, maybe somewhat longer, because she's got more crazy things that they can go after with her. Listening to her try to explain the trip to Vietnam, I heard her at the hearing when she did it, and if she says anything like it on the stand, talk about salivating. And I don't know what she's going to do with this. Gee, I wrote out the script in my own hand because this inmate told me to do it. So, I mean, there's so much fodder for them to go after her. So maybe a little longer than Charlie, but I'm not sure it would be much longer than Charlie. The defense, I can't answer that because I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the theme is. They start in one direction and then they do something that I think is contrary to what I think they're trying to build towards. And it's like a meandering, I don't even know what to call it. So Jeremy, you've had more experience. Maybe you can make a better prediction. I can't do it with them.
Yeah, that's fast. Look at this. This was it. This is what I was trying to get to. And Amy, New Jersey, is the one who said it's no longer Donna, but Donna. And I like that. Best quote of the day from Joe. Jackie said, "I lost my train of thought." And Joe immediately chimes in, "I didn't know she had one."
And I apologized right afterwards. It was snarky and I should have left it out. But
I would love to do a show, you and Carm just roasting people. It doesn't even have to be anything legally related, because Carm's just as fast as Joe.
It got out of my mouth before I could catch it. I mean, it was just...
You and Carm have that same impulse reaction. But Jeremy, just to answer Joe's question to you, walk us through how you think Donna's testimony plays out, assuming she provides it on Tuesday.
It also brings to mind, the old TV show Matlock. He could be slow and plodding and scattered, but then he gets to the point where he's got you like a fish and he reels you in and you're trapped. But they never quite could get there today. I think Charlie was on the stand way too long. If I recall, his direct testimony was something like 6 hours, maybe more than that. And then I believe Georgia started the cross on one day for about 45 minutes to an hour and then finished it up the next day. And I felt like her second day, if I recall, was much better. It was the Georgia that we've seen in this trial where, when you say something, she's got it, the line and the page right there to nail you with it. And so I think if they were wise, they would put Donna on just as a brief testimony, just a few things that she's going to testify to. No, I never intended Mr. Markell to be killed. We thought about maybe we do something, break his legs, hurt him, but never kill him. This was never what I intended. It went too far. Charlie told me about this extortion thing, but he never told me exactly what was going on. I had nothing to do with this. I only met Katie Magbanua one time. I never met Sigfredo. I never met Luis, and then the state, hopefully would also keep it brief. The things that Donna cannot escape from, boom, boom, you go through that list. The script is one thing I don't think she can wiggle out of. An innocent person doesn't write a script. There's no other explanation for that. Why would you do that for the inmate? Why would they threaten you to write something like that? If they're trying to extort you for money, they could use physical violence in the jail and get you to do what they want. They're not going to have you. I don't know too many criminals are going to have you sit there and write something for them.
Yeah. And Jeremy, let me ask you another thing. So let's say she gets up on the stand. We saw this in the transport video from Miami to Tallahassee. We've seen it a couple other occasions where she gets almost to a point where she's hyperventilating / having an anxiety panic attack, really emotional. What if she, and I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. What I was going to say feigns the emotion, but let's say we don't know. What if she gets up there and is basically hysterical? And thank you to Mamu in New Orleans. But let's say she gets on the stand. She's essentially hysterical with emotion. Does Judge Everett have to jump in and say, you need to collect yourself? Because he keeps saying the jurors can't make a decision here based on emotion.
He certainly would if she behaved in that manner. I don't know that she would. I think she would probably shed some tears or get emotional the way you might expect somebody testifying on cross-examination would. I think she would probably control herself enough there, because they'll be preparing her. And that I don't think they would believe would be helpful to them. Now, if she says, now if they ask her, are you innocent? Did you do this? And then she sheds tears, that's part of the theatrics of maybe taking her own advice, put on the best performance of your life, Wendi. This would be, the best performance of your life, Donna, to turn on the waterworks when it's appropriate to do so. But I don't think she would go crazy or anything.
That's really very interesting, Jeremy. That's a full circle moment that now Donna might have to take the advice she once gave to Wendi, which is put on the performance of her life, which if she doesn't do, even if she does do it, I think it's going to fail. But she's got all the pressure in the world. She might have to bite her lip or something to make herself try to cry and do that. But Joe, one of the other questions I keep getting has to do with the evening after the murder takes place, and Harvey and Donna are stopping by Charlie's, and then I think it's an hour and 8 minutes, if I'm right, goes unaccounted for. What's happening there, Joe? What's your interpretation of what is happening there, and how damning is that? Because if some of us are having trouble putting that together, is the jury having trouble understanding?
No, I think Georgia will put that together exceedingly well in the closing and make it very clear. What happened, and you can listen to Katie on this, is that they stopped on the way to go to Tallahassee to be with Wendi, to drop off cash to Charlie, because that was the night he was giving cash to Katie to bring back to Luis and Sigfredo. And Donna's cash wouldn't have been stapled, but he would have had the time then to organize the cash the way he organized his cash. And Katie says the money was damp and moldy. Now, that's the kind of statement that I think is exceptionally credible, because who is going to make up something like that? If you had the rest of the year, you wouldn't make it up. So by itself, that information sounds remarkably credible. So they stopped to drop off the money on their way to see Wendi. He evidently didn't have enough to pay what he had to pay. Had some in the safe, but not enough. And then Katie gets there and he puts the money. What did she say? In a baggie, and then in a cellophane bag, and drops it in the diaper bag or something. And she takes it to Sigfredo and Luis. And the next morning, she's looking for Sigfredo to hand off the money.
Yeah. I'm going to take your word, and I think Georgia will wrap it up. It is very interesting to watch. Just today, at the end, before they rested, with hammering home everything, it was like this crescendo, Jeremy, where they were just dotting every single line, crossing every single T before they said, okay, we rest. Abby Crossing here has been by my side in the courtroom helping me, invaluable. Convinced the money was moldy because she washed it in June. I have no doubt that Donna physically put that money in a washing machine, thinking she was going to either because of OCD or because she thought she was going to outsmart the police and get rid of DNA evidence. So I have no idea. But what I do know, Jeremy Mutz is the Southern gentleman from Chipley, criminal defense attorney, a one-time prosecutor in the Leon County State Attorney's Office. Jeremy, is Tuesday it? I mean, are they going to get through Donna, get through the witness or two? And is the defense going to rest? And are we going to head into deliberations? That's part one of your final question.
They may very well. Now, of course, the defense is going to have a motion for judgment of acquittal. They may have other motions that they bring up that could push it back a little, but that may very well be the timeline. May have the case to the jury Wednesday or Thursday.
And Jeremy, Donna needs to study Carm before testify. She should call Carm. I don't know. Maybe Carm gets thrown in jail this weekend, and Donna tries to get Carm to write a script. I have no idea. Anything can happen. Jeremy, what was my question? I had a final question for you, but now I was thrown off. As Carm says, I'm having a senior. How could I forget? Wendi. It seems like, there's a lot of people who are on the fence who are no longer on the fence, and you seem to be one of those who believe is coming. Look at this, 199.99 super chat. God, I hope they get Wendi. Thank you, Matthew K. Cannot thank. I mean, this is super generous. Can't stand that disgusting human. Sorry to laugh. Would rather be forced to spend dinner with Jodi Arias versus duplicitous Wendi vomit. Miserable human. Thanks for all your coverage. Best content for these miserable humans. I guess that's a compliment. We do excellent coverage on miserable humans. So thank you for that. That was super generous. But yeah, Jeremy, you seem to, be all in on, I mean, if I'm Wendi, I am guzzling that Pepto-Bismol and taking whatever else I can on top of it.
Yeah.
How soon does this happen, if it happens?
Maybe a few weeks after the conviction with Donna's case. I don't think they'll be in a rush. I think they'll probably have her under surveillance. I understand she lives in a Western state now. So my thinking is definitely evolved on hers, because I knew people that were mutual friends of hers. They told me, oh, there's no way she could be involved in this. She's a nice person and all that. And so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. And then my first views of the interview, the first few times I watched that, it seemed to me, at least on the surface, to be an honest reaction that she was having to what she was hearing. But I think the more I heard about that, the more times I watched that and saw some of the electronic evidence that we now have, and we've seen more of that in this trial. I mean, I do think she's next, and I think that's it's necessary for justice in this case, and I think it's there. I wouldn't advocate that if I didn't think that the state doesn't have a good faith basis for it. So I do think it's next, probably within 2 or 3 weeks of the conviction of Donna.
Wow. Well, I'm expecting you or Tim Jansen or someone in the know to flag me like we did with Donna, and we're going to be all over it. Les Skierka here. You think people are donating a lot through Super Chat? Imagine if Carm needs bail. Imagine having to Carm bail money. That would be wild. Carm, stay out of trouble. Everyone is saying this. Jeremy Mutz has a sexy Southern voice, that is for sure. Joe Patuto, again, you're now the official patron saint of STS. We cannot thank you enough. We will try to thank you by bribing you with some, Broadway tickets or something, whatever we can do for you. Your final thoughts here. We're going into a 3-day weekend. Do you think that the defense rests Tuesday? And same question, do they go after Wendi?
I think there's a fair chance they'll rest on Tuesday, depending on whether they've got some motion or something else they want to do Tuesday morning. And it seemed to me they talked, I didn't hear it at the end, couldn't hear well enough, but Josh Selman said something about something he needed to do Tuesday morning, and it wasn't clear to me what. But if they start promptly, I think they easily could be done on Tuesday. And unless something happens in that testimony, I don't think Georgia will do a redirect with anyone, because I don't think she'll need it. As to, what did you ask me about, when they would arrest Wendi, or whether they will arrest Wendi?
Whether and when, I guess.
Well, I've always said yes as to whether. When, I'll defer to Jeremy on, because he has much more experience about the way the prosecutors would think about the next step and when they would make it.
Jeremy, let me ask you one final question. Thank you, Joe. I mean, just in terms of process, Jason Newland is the chief investigator, and I won't confirm or deny whether there are a lot of women in the gallery who have a crush on him because he wears cowboy boots and tight pants, and he's got a firearm on his side, and he's got a manly beard, but he is very good at what he does. He's kind of the unsung hero, I think, in that office. And then you've got Pat Sanford, longtime FBI agent, who's very nice. I think I said this yesterday. It was very humbling. He said, I watched the show, and thank you for what you've done for the Markells. There's a guy saying this to me that I've done essentially nothing other than host a podcast, and he's been investigating this case for all this time. So law enforcement is incredible. They did an unbelievable job here. But with that long-winded response, my question is, from your experience inside the office, is Wendi's passport flagged now? If she tries to get away like her mother did, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or do they have eyes on her? What do they do now? Because this is an interesting position to be in for law enforcement.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't have something flagged on the passport or didn't have eyes on her in some way. FBI most likely, because of the evidence against her and the example that her parents provided of the attempted flight. And I think her relocation to a part of the country that might make, ostensibly might make travel to Mexico easier. So I think that's a concern. I think that I'd be very surprised if they weren't doing something at least to keep a line on her.
I will finish this out by saying huge thanks to Space Coast on the West Coast. That guy is our unsung hero. He's on the other side of the country, handles all the tech issues, which means he's up early. Gets done a little early, but no, he's up early. All the audio that gets sweetened is because of Spacey. The COE is driving up here, which I can't believe with my 3 kids. She never stops going. You've got Steve Cohen, who's booking guests as we speak. And of course, the mods are the best mods. And I always say best guests, better community. And everyone has been coming up to me at the courthouse. And it is an amazing feeling that we built this community. And I feel like everyone is equally a part of it. So I really appreciate it from the bottom of our heart. I'll let you know if Carmen and I are going to do a show on Monday. I'll post that on Twitter at Podcast STS. And on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor. We also have a Facebook page that I always post on, so check that out. Huge thanks to Jeremy Mutz, the Southern Gentleman, and to Joe Patudo, the law professor and the patron saint of STS. Love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel. We'll see you Tuesday or Monday, but Labor Day ends and court is back in session Tuesday.